بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما وقربنا منك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I pray that this is finds you all in the best of states. And as we are looking to, inshallah, we're in Rajab and we're looking to Sha'ban and then to Ramadan. And so this is, I wanted to talk a little bit about what, go back to, I do a lot of things with, just women and how to empower us for the best year of worship that we can have, right? So Ramadan right now, we are in Rajab. See, it's so hard to write though. So let me see if I can do something else. Mm, I don't know if there's where did my pen go? So we're in Rajab right now, right? But we want to go to, like, our goal here is to kind of everything is going to be for Ramadan. Okay. So this is what we are concentrating on. Like, what are we going to do in Ramadan? And so Rajab seeds that we have to have where are the seeds that we want in Rajab. We want those seeds to come out where? In Ramadan, right? We want those plants to come out in Ramadan. So the first thing, and of course there's Shaban here in the middle. So we have so this month is the month that we are supposed to be planting our seeds, right? Now, of course, hey, what happened to my thing? Somebody erased it. Or what did I do? I don't know. Um, oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Mashallah. So so when we have the our we want to choose our seeds, but the first thing before we even choose our seeds, right? First we're going to talk about how to choose our seeds. What are the seeds that we need? We can't just like, oh, we go to a generic shop, a place and just plant, get a bag of seeds and just plant anything, right? We have to first tend to our soil, right? And this is something that, I got a lot from my coach, Sarah Maddock, Jazakallah khairan, that, this idea of our lives are like a garden, right? And we have to tend to them. We have to tend them to them. The soil is, we have to make sure um, it's open to even accepting our seeds. Sometimes the soil is too acidic or too whatever the other thing is called. I'm not a big gardener, but so we have to tend to the soil first. So before we can even plant our seeds, we need to kind of get out the weeds, right? So these are just things that I want us as women to think about collectively here, because a lot of times I know how life is. We don't kind of sit down and think about these things. And so let's take sometimes, especially if you can get a like a notebook and a pen. And what I want us to take stock of what it is that we need and what it is that what it is that we want and what it is that we need right now. So first, when we think about Ramadan, the things that we want to do in Ramadan, okay, the first, one of the main things is Quran, right? We want to be doing Quran and of course fasting. That's the number one thing. And the reason why I'm writing that down is especially if like there are women, if you are like say you're nursing, say you are pregnant, okay, I'm not gonna write the whole thing, or nursing, you're going to need special seeds. You're going to need very special seeds if you are in this category, pregnant and nursing. Okay. In order for you to be fasting, even in Ramadan, you're going to need seeds that other people don't need. right? And in order for you to be able to actually get the most out of Ramadan if you're pregnant or nursing. Okay, so those are, some of those seeds may be that you need a lot more help. You need a lot more nutrition. You need to make sure that your nutrition level is at it's just at a level where you can actually be able to fast, right? So as a, if you're pregnant or nursing, or even if you have young children, so that you're not burnt out, there's a lot of, there's some seeds that you need that are not going to be like the seeds of like other people, like other women who are maybe, older and have older kids and are not in that same situation. Right. So that is something that we have to think about. So in Ramadan, what is it that we want? So we're going to first start off, what is it that you want to accomplish in Ramadan? Right. So write out down a few things. Like, for example, of course, we all want to be fasting. The only, people who have to kind of like star fasting or actually write down fasting, or if you're pregnant or nursing, and or if you're poorly, that's going to be an issue, that fasting may become an issue. But inshallah, for the rest of us, fasting, hopefully just, it's something that we're all just going to be doing. Now, in terms of Quran, for example, are you we want to do a khatam. A lot of us will want to do a khatam of Quran, right? One khatam at least of Quran, which means that we're going to have to read what, 30 juz, or at least a juz a day. Now, if you have your period, if you're, going to have your period, it's not going to be 30 one juz a day. It's going to be more than that if you have your period for like, say, 10 days, right? So it's going to be 1.5 juz per day. So that's something that you're going to have to determine. It may not be that you're going to do a khatam yourself. That is something the Prophet ﷺ recommended. Okay, so that is the sunnah. When he asked uh when he was asked like the minimum of how much one should read Quran, he said read it in a month. And if there was something that would be less or easier, he would have said that. So he started off with kind of with what it should be the minimum. So those of us who can read fluently and read easily, our goal should be to have a khatam of Quran. Definitely in Ramadan, if we're not doing it outside Ramadan, okay? But for others, if those who find difficulty in reciting, then you allocate your how many pages you want. It could be 5 pages. It could be, half a juz. It could be 10 pages. It could be 5 pages. It could be even 1 page, so depending where you're at with reciting. And, if you're a new Muslim, maybe it could just be even just, your seed it's not reciting Quran, but it's to learn Quran, right? So that's going to be different. So the first thing is, aside from fasting, is Quran. And then we want, so that's number one. And then the second thing is just dhikr, dhikr. You want to make sure that you are doing your dhikr, or actually perhaps not dhikr, number two, I would say prayer. Prayer is actually, because the month of sorry, this is really messy, but the month of Ramadan is a month of qiyam or siyam. Qiyam is the standing in prayer, right? So making sure we can do prayer, which is, of course, the first prayer is the tarawih, the 20 rak'ahs of tarawih. The sunnah is 20 rak'ahs. This is according to the majority of the scholars. Very few scholars say it's not within the four madhahib that it's 8. So the sunnah mu'akkada, the strong sunnah, is mu'akkada, meaning the Prophet said it should be done every single day, it's 20 rak'ahs. So this is something that 20 rak'ahs, okay? The prayer that we should do. Okay, sorry, it is so messy. I hope you guys are following. Anyhow, now a lot of women now, even if you don't have children, we are the ones who are going to be responsible for iftars, right? Nowadays, it's not as difficult, But especially when the days are long, it does become difficult when you have, you're fasting for a long day and then you have to cook and then you have to clean and then you have to go for tarawih. That is difficult. So that is something that I want us to think about. I want you to think about as well. How are you going to see, these are things that are not negotiable. Like it's not like, you're fasting, you are going to definitely be fasting. Prayer, tarawih is something that we should be like, that's not, it's a sunnah mu'akkada. That's not something negotiable. It's not something that I, may not do it. Okay. So Tarawih is something you have to do. Quran as well. For Ramadan, it's not negotiable. It's something that you have to do unless you're just like in the state of your life where you're like so kind of overwhelmed. And if you have a new baby or something like that, that you can't do that. But if possible, like most people, we need to be doing obviously fasting, your tarawih, Quran, your daily Quran, and add to that, for example, a daily dhikr, something extra, right? Or extra reading or extra. So that's what you can, maybe dhikr or seeking knowledge, class or whatever. Okay. So that is like that. This would be number three. All right. So now, so that's for Ramadan, right? Just to give us an idea of what we want to do in Ramadan. So now to get to that, okay, so now we're going to backtrack. Now, to get to that point, what do we need to plant right now? Okay. So I talked mainly about worship here in Ramadan. Okay. So Quran, prayer, and dhikr or the other things. So this is one aspect. Okay. And of course, so these are things that are pretty much non-negotiable. We want to be doing these in Ramadan. Now, so we have to think about what is it that we need to, are there seeds that we need to plant in order for those things to happen during Ramadan? Now, those are, I feel like what I talked about was just very basic um things about just worship. Okay. um Inshallah, I'll get to your question number, but in terms of basic things about worship, now there could be other things that we have to look at as women, as in our family lives as well, what's going on. And a lot of one of the things that I mentioned is that right now a lot of us need seeds of healing, just because of what is just as an ummah in general, like needing seeds of healing because of what is going on in Gaza, and just being overwhelmed with a lot of emotion, constant emotion. A lot of us need seeds of um, just healing, and also just reconnecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the seerah, and with our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so this is something that I feel like everybody right now, um, as women, all of us, or the whole ummah, needs like healing and reconnecting. Okay, and so I'm gonna write that down, but so those are some things that we want to plant, healing and reconnecting seeds with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Quran. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Quran. Because wallahi, if we the a true healing is when we connect to our deen, is when we connect really with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, go back and just be in, let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have that true tawakkul and have that true um you know kind of be in that place where we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking care of everything, right? That is, or just like be in the fi kanafillah, like meaning in like it's almost in the like the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Go back into the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and recognize us as an ummah that we are in the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is to leave our own kind of plotting and planning and recognize we are in the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is incredibly empowering and healing at that. And so to reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Quran, all of these ways, it will allow us for healing. So that's one thing that we need as just everybody, regardless where we are in our lives. Now, the other thing is, as Sister Marie saying she just had a 9-week-old baby, mashallah. Um, if you can fast, of course you should fast. If you're nursing, I usually do a talk on nursing and fasting right before Ramadan. So perhaps, inshallah, that would benefit you. But everybody has to fast, right? Even if you're nursing or if you're pregnant, the general rule is that you still have to fast. The only time you don't have to fast is that if you can't, and if you feel that there will be harm and you're pretty sure that there's going to be some harm, then that you have an allowance. This is the same for pregnant women, nursing women, or somebody who's sick. Okay. Um, but the so I actually wanted to talk a little bit about going back to, since we're talking about Rajab. Okay, going back to the seeds that we want. Just Rajab is it's for one of the four Ashhurul Huram, right? What is one of the Ashhurul Haram, the one of the sacred months. And what does that mean for it to be a sacred month? When it's a sacred month, it's not allowed to um uh the scholars say that in these months, the sacred months, which Rajab is by itself, the other months, Dhul Hijjah and their Muharram, they are together, three together. The Rajab is the, doing things that are haram or sins during these months are more grave. They're more of a big deal. But I wanted to mention, so traditionally, even this is for pre-Islamic understandings, that during this month it was not allowed to fight. There was not allowed for there to be a war or start a battle or etc. etc. during these months. So these were Ashhur al-Huram, that these were the sacred months, and so one was not allowed to fight. Now, what happens is during in the seerah that the Prophet ﷺ, he sent a battalion. The head of was Abdullah bin Jaysh. He sent them on a mission, and they met a group of the mushrikun, a group of the kuffar of Quraysh, and they were not sure if it was the beginning of Rajab or if it was still in Jamada. And they made the decision to go ahead and fight them, because they said if they didn't attack them then they would lose that opportunity. So they attacked them, and then this big thing happened with the Quraysh, that they were saying, oh, this is they how Muhammad claims he is obeying, he is uh, keeping up the hurumat, or keeping up those things that are sacred. And look, his people attacked us in the sacred months. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayah with يسألونك عن الشهر الحرام قتال فيه قل قتال فيه كبير وصد excuse me قتال فيه كبير وصد عن المسجد الحرام وكفر به. Let me just get the eye actually, so I don't forget. What is it? قل كتاب فيه كبير وصد عن المسجد. قل قتال فيه كبير وصد عن المسجد الحرام وإخراج أهله منه. I lost the eye, and I don't want to say it incorrect. So the ayah is sorry. There we go. They قل قتال فيه كبير وصد عن سبيل الله. Okay, that's what I had got wrong. صد عن سبيل الله وكفر به والمسجد الحرام وإخراج أهله منه أكبر عند الله والفتنة أكبر من القتل. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down this ayah. They ask you about the sacred months, uh, fighting in them. And so he says, say fighting in them is huge. It's like a grave sin. And preventing in the way of Allah, um, preventing people, keeping people from the way of Allah, and disbelieving in Him, and preventing people from the Masjid al-Haram and kicking people out of it is graver with Allah. And fitna is more grave than killing. Fitna, um, fitna is worse than killing. And this is something that, subhanAllah, when this ayah was revealed, the Muslims had some they felt better, especially those people who had engaged in fighting, that they hadn't done something wrong. But here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing priorities, is giving us an example of how to understand priorities. Okay, because of course killing is in the sacred months, killing is wrong. But what is worse? Torturing people and disbelieving in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is worse. These things are worse than killing and fighting at that time. Right? The Muslims were at a point where this happened in the right at the beginning of the Madini period. So right when it was allowed to fight, this incident happened. So basically, what happened? The Muslims had to flee Mecca. They're in Medina right now, and then they're at this point where they face, should we fight these people who've like basically usurped all of our property, that we've lost all our property in Mecca, right? And they have nothing, or should we wait? So they decide to attack, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that's not so bad as what you guys did, right? What the Quraysh did is much worse, and now they're here trying to be kind of like holier than thou. That look what you guys do in the sacred months. What they perpetrated to the Muslims, to human beings, right, is so much. It was so the torture that they put them through, the usurping of the property, etc., etc. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us giving us an idea of how to have priorities, right? So even in these months, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed for there to be fighting, because there was there was something more important. There was more important to stop the fitna, to stop the oppression, to stop the torture that would lead or led, sometimes to people rejecting their deen. Right. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا يَزَالُونَ يُقَاتِلُكُمْ حَتَّى يَرُدُّوكُمْ عَنْ دِينِكُمْ إِنِ اسْتَطَاعُوا. And this is the same ayah. And they will not stop from fighting you until they return you from your deen, if they are able to. So their goal was what? To make, these Muslims, to torture them to the point where they will give up their deen. Right. And that is worse than just killing. That is worse than, you don't want to say just killing, but that is worse than killing, torturing someone to that extent. Right. And we see this happening, let's see if, like, right now, right, in our time. So that is a little bit just about Rajab, the sacredness of Rajab. Rajab is indeed, it's a sacred month, and so the things that are haram to do in Rajab, or haram to do anytime, there are even more like shameful to do it during Rajab. And there's a poet, this a few lines of poetry that are ascribed to Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu I wanted to mention. تعدون قتلا في الحرام عظيمة وأعظم منه لو يرى الرشد راشد سدودكم عما يقول محمد وكفر به والله راء وشاهد وإخراجكم من مسجد الله أهله لئلا يرى لله في البيت ساجد. It says you count or you consider killing in the haram a great thing, in the sacred months a great thing. And what is greater from that, if only a rightly guided person would see this, is you're preventing from what Muhammad says, and your kufr in it, or you're disbelieving it. And Allah is witnessing what you do, and you're kicking out from the masjid of Allah, its people, so that one will not see uh, anyone prostrating in the house of Allah, anyone prostrating for Allah. So, meaning, subhanAllah, all these things, why am I mentioning this? Is that yes, the Ramadan is for Quran and fasting and these things, right? But what's more important, what what we have to kind of see our priorities. Do we have in our houses, are our houses like battlefields? Are so many haram things happening in our houses that we're fighting with this one, we're cursing this person, people are cursing each other, or they're fighting with each other. There's so little like sakina in the house. There's People are being oppressed. Are these things happening in our houses, which this is, to get away from that state of oppression, that is more important than actually, the Quran and dhikr. What is more important than that? There are things that are more important, which is keeping away like yourself and your family from oppression and fitna. Okay, so that is um, one thing, I wanted to really mention here, is that in our lives and our families, how much um, oppression, I'm going to just put it OPP, oppression or fitna do you have in your life? And fitna is can be translated as, trial, tribulation, just anything. What the reality of fitna is that things that you have to, it's not fitra, fitna, things that you have to do, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you to do it, it becomes harder to follow the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It becomes harder to follow the ahkam or the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, either, doing them or leaving something. So it becomes like, for example, I give you an example of fitna, staying up late watching TV. That is a fitna, because why? Because it's going to become too hard for that person to get up and pray Fajr. So doing something, staying up late and watching TV or watching a movie is a fitna, because it'll become too difficult for you to wake up for Fajr. Okay? So somebody who suggests to you, oh, come on, let's watch a movie, and it's like 12 a.m. in the morning, or it's 1 a.m. in the morning, and oh, well, it's okay, I'll make sure to get up or whatever, and it's they hardly get up for Fajr, right? This person is being a fitna. Okay. Um, uh, uh, Another thing, what is just a classic example, when you are, for example, in a difficult situation, say you're upset about something, about something, and that the other party, the other person, it can be your child, it can be your spouse, it can be your parent, your mother or your mother-in-law or your sibling, whoever it is, your boss even, right, at work. But you're already upset, and that person keeps on saying, well, why didn't you do that? And this is, I wish you had told me, or I wish you had asked me to help you, or I wish now that person, and I'm mentioning this because you could be that person. Okay. So you could be that person that is prodding someone on. When the situation is volatile and you keep kind of prodding someone on when they're already upset, what is that? That becomes a fitna. You become a fitna for that person to do the right thing. What is the right thing? The right thing is not to curse, is to control your anger at that point, right? In terms of when there's a volatile or angry situation, the right thing is to control your anger. But if somebody is there who keeps on kind of pushing you, it becomes harder for you to control your tongue and therefore control your anger and control your words, correct? Right? So, so that is another type of fitna that makes it harder for you to um to not do that which is haram. So it becomes easier to do. So fitna is when it becomes harder to do that with which is farud or wajib, what you have to do, or it becomes easier to do that which is haram. So it's haram to, for example, curse or act upon anger, etc., etc. So, but when you're in a volatile situation and there are people around you who keep on prodding you on, etc., or maybe you're that person, you are being a fitna for that, for whoever is in a vulnerable situation. Okay. So it's, we want to, of course, get to this point where we have all these, nice things here, right, in Ramadan, like which is Quran and, all these, I'm going to change the, like Quran and, pretty things and positive things and, worship and, connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and all these things. But if we're having issues here where with oppression and fitna, it's going to be very hard to have safa, which is clarity in your heart, clarity or a clear heart or clear slate that you can actually put in seeds of where Quran and dhikr and these things are going to benefit. Never, I just want to say something. Whatever your situation is, Quran and dhikr and fasting and prayer will always benefit. Even if you're in which we all are, right? We are all sometimes going to be fitna for other people. So Quran and dhikr will always benefit. It will never be um, have a negative effect, except when except when there's arrogance mixed with it, meaning, you're being oppressive, you're being a fitna for people, and then you deny it. That is where Quran will not be benefiting, and it actually be a hujjah against us. What do you have to may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not make us of those people. But otherwise, if we recognize that we are being a fitna, that is the first step. So the first thing I want to kind of for us to do is recognize, see if there are places in our lives right now where there's fitna or there's oppression. Especially, are you being oppressive? Are you being oppressive so oppression in our in our deen, dhulm in our deen is putting anything in a place where it's not meant to be. It's a very broad definition, putting something in its place where it's not meant to be. For example, and I'm talking to women here. So for example, a child breaks a glass by mistake, right? Not on purpose, by mistake. They drop something and to slap them and say, why did you do that? Why are you so stupid? That is oppressive. That is oppressive because this was, and you can be frustrated and be, okay, you have something, an extra thing that you need to clean up, etc. You can be frustrated, but to take out anger on something that was an accident, that is oppressive. And it could happen with adults as well, right? Say you were cooking and you burned something. When nobody burns their food on purpose, right? If you have somebody yelling at you for that, or especially if it's not something that you do regularly. If it's something that happens often, then it may be carelessness. You need to fix that. But say, it was a mistake, etc. For someone to yell at you for that, that is oppressive, right? That's oppressive. So to put something in a place where it's not meant to be, to put words in a situation, to use words that are not meant to be used, to call your child stupid or, to call them names for making a mistake, right? That's oppressive. You're being oppressive to your child. Likewise, if that's happening with your spouse, with your siblings, whatever it is. I hope that would never happen with a parent. It's completely haram, completely unacceptable. But if those things are happening, that's what oppression is. So to do something it's not fitting for the situation, to make a big deal uh, of something that it's not worth that much. Okay, if somebody says something to you, say you were in that situation where you were the person who did something wrong and somebody said something to you, you know, for you to defend yourself is not oppressive, right? But for you to go and, you know, maybe take the pot of food and throw it all across the kitchen, or, then now you're oppressing, right? So, to have what I call a normal response. There's a normal response, there is an appropriate response, and then that's your crazy response or oppressive response, right? So we want to always be in whatever we do in all our dealings, we want to be in what is normal and what is acceptable with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course. And then there is, of course, the above and beyond, which we're not talking about right now. We're just trying to be normal and not be oppressive. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those, of course, we strive. Everything, I want to say the intention here, whatever we're doing here, our intention, my intention, your intention should be always our goal is always to be sticking to the sunnah of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our, what he did in Ramadan, right? He fasted, he prayed, he read Quran, right? That's what we want to do. We want it, whatever he did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Our goal is to be like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to emulate him, not to be like him, to follow in his footsteps, right? So what he did in Ramadan, we want to do. But in order to get to that point, right, what is it that we have to? What is it that we need? So the first thing, if we can take like a moment to just look at our relationships. So the first thing is, relationships, and to check if is there oppression and fitna in your relationship. And it could be so there's two ways to it, that you are the kind of being oppressed, you face that oppression, or that you're giving it out to others. Okay, so we don't want either of those. We don't want we don't want ourselves to be oppressed, and we don't want to give it out to others either, right? So that's one thing, oppression and fitna, in those understandings that I explained, right? So not being a fitna to other people and not oppressing other people, and also not being the subject of oppression or fitna for yourself. So just take a moment to write that down. Um, and, it could also be that you have places where at times you are oppressive. Note down what are those times. Because I find that sometimes I'm oppressive, like, okay, I'm using excessive force or excessive, I'm being too heavy-handed with my kids, but it's at a time when I'm hungry, I haven't eaten all day, or I'm tired. So I'm cranky, right? I'm cranking myself. And so I'm irritable and I take that out. And if my kids are being annoying, which they're going to be annoying, right? But I'm when there are some things that are normal, like kids are normally they do X, Y, and Z, right? But what is the normal response? you can't be like going full blown like attack mode on them, right? So, but if you find yourself doing that, like just going full blown attack mode, and so that becomes oppressive, I find myself, I do that, but when I do that, usually it's because I'm low, like I haven't taken care of myself. Like I'm in a situation where my self-care or just my care, it's gotten, I haven't taken care of myself, and that's why I've opened up myself to becoming a president fitna. So here I want this, for you to recognize, um, let's see, are you irritable? Oh, that's kind of easier. Irritable, irritable, cranky, cranky yourself. And it means your self-care is wanting. Your self-care is lacking. Okay. So that's something that you can take note. I'm just finding it hard to use this whiteboard, but what I would like you to do, just make a note that oppression and fitna here, it should be, both ways. Either you're being oppressed or you're being oppressive. Okay, that and neither of that you want. Now, yeah, what do you do if you're being oppressed? Is that you have to put down seeds to get out of that oppression, right? So if you are being oppressive, so this is if you're oppressive, right? You have to check, are you irritable or cranky? And then check your self-care in order to remedy that, So number one, if you're being oppressive, to remedy that, um, you want to, oh, I think somebody's trying to help me here. Yeah, so in order to remedy that, you want to look at your self-care, right? Or what are other things that trigger you? Maybe you're just overwhelmed. If you're oppressive, that could be another trigger. What happens when you're overwhelmed? What do you need? Maybe you need help. You need help. How do you get help? Look at your resources. You have to see what is it possible? How is it possible for you to get the help that you need? A woman if you've just had a baby, in order to be able to, oh, I want to go up here. Where do I go up? Oh, here we go. In order to be able to actually fast in Ramadan, do Quran, do Taraweeh, you're probably going to need a lot of help, right? So you're going to need help from your husband, if he's available to help you out, from family, from your mom, your friends, whatever it is. But one of the things I think before this, I was thinking about this today, is that before you kind of look at your resources, you have to understand that you're worthy of help. Okay? Understand that you are worthy of it. That you are as women, right? I think this is a big thing here, is that understanding that we are worthy of help, that we are worthy, we are it's okay for us to ask our husbands to help us. It's okay for us to say to our husbands, like, if for example, he works 9 to 5, yes, but then afterwards he has time to help you watch the baby for you so you can pray tarawih, right? You're worthy of doing that. Your ibadah is important enough that he can help you out. If he has that time and he's available, the person who is most worthy of his help is you. So to understand that, to understand that this is our deen, not that, the person who's most worthy of help is the neighbor, or, even his brother, or even his sister, or even, a community member. No, the person who is most worthy of his help is you. So claim that. Okay. this is really important. I feel like, women are like, oh, okay, even if he has time, your husbands have time, or they're able to help. We don't ask ourselves, because of culturally the way that we've kind of seen, or just the way our households work, is that the man almost like he just he's not supposed to help, because that's not of um his duties. That's not what he does. Like, he just works and brings in the money, and he's not supposed to help out, which is we it's so away from the sunnah, right? Because if you guys heard, just recently we had in the Shama'il class on Friday, the Prophet ﷺ, how see that Aisha, how the wives of the Prophet ﷺ talked about the Prophet ﷺ, that he would help in the house, he would help his family. And to know that, the Prophet ﷺ said, if you have a dirham, spend it on yourself. And if you have another one, spend it on your family. Know that, after he's taking care of himself, he's had a long day, he needs to take some rest. Okay, after an hour or so, he has extra time. You, as his wife, are the most worthy of that time. Okay, so this is something, that is kind of like a seed. If you don't feel like you're worthy, I wanted to make a star here. If you don't feel that you're worthy, that's a seed that you want to plant. That to understand, that's a seed, the seed of worthiness, the seed of that you are worthy of that help. Okay. And what I would suggest is, I'm mentioning these things because I know these things are issues. Okay. So if it's not an issue for you, that's great. But I know it's an issue for a lot of women. But what's the seed of worthiness of help? To reconnect with the sunnah. Okay. The seed of worthiness, how do you plant the seed, is connecting back to the sunnah. Okay. I mean, most of these things we are going to go back to the sunnah, to be honest. SubhanAllah, it's like, how do we um how do we understand that we are worthy? We understand that from our deen. We understand it from our deen. Who else, who is the best one to tell us when what we're worthy of? Is our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is his example. And he showed us that as a wife, you are worthy of that help from your husband. Okay. And as somebody, especially if you have, as I said, a baby or young kids, you are worthy of having a normal, like, you're worthy of care. You're worthy of not being in a place where, you're only having a few hours of sleep, and then you have to get up and fast, and then you have to get up and cook, and you're just like running around like a headless chicken. You're worthy of taking of better care for yourself than that, right? And how do we know that? Again, through the sunnah, right? I can understand if there's a situation where, like, both partners, or both, everyone in the family is really working very hard. There are people in that those situations, like, they're constantly working just to kind of keep the household running. And at that point, if you are in that situation where your partner is working constantly as well, he's working just as hard, actually harder. And this is something that another thing that we get from the sunnah is that men are supposed to work harder than women, right? So generally when the man is taking care of a woman, or even if you're in a household where, if you're not married, but knowing that the rijal qawwamun ala nisa, the men are the caretakers, are the qawamun, what it means is, just to take care of a woman's well-being physically, and also emotionally and mentally, so that you don't get to a place where you're overwhelmed, right? You're not, we don't want to be in a place where, this is happening, where we're oppressive because we're irritable or cranky or overwhelmed, because our self-care is lacking, or we need help and we don't ask for it because we feel we're not worthy. Okay, so the seeds that you want to plant are the seeds of worthiness, worthiness of, that you are worthy of having, like, a normal kind of, like, a balanced life, and also worthy of help from your husband or from other family members. Okay. So the flip side, the other side is if you are being in an oppressed state, which I pray you are not, but also it's common, unfortunately. So we have to talk about it. Uh, we'll change that. If one is in oppressed state, what do you do? Okay. And again, so now what we're going to do is take stock of our resources here again. What is it that we can do? First of all, just give me a minute. Okay, Bismillah. So the first thing is obviously, every situation is going to be different. Like, if you're being oppressed from, parents or siblings or, spouse, I think a lot of us here perhaps are married and it's that situation, or it could be from in-laws as well. So the first thing is resources. First is recognizing that you're oppressed. When a lot of times women have an issue with not realizing they're oppressed because they think it's normal. They think something is normal where it's not. Okay. If you are uncomfortable, if you are feel something is wrong, then it's wrong. Why do I say that? It's just like, oh, some people are like, oh no, and not everything is based on your feeling, but everybody has different boundaries. Everybody has different things that they're comfortable with, things that they are, okay with. And if you are in a situation where you're constantly uncomfortable in your own house, in your own, that means that you're not in a house of sakina, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said our houses are meant to be places of sakina. If your house is not a place of sakina, that means there's something wrong there. Okay. And it could be that there's an oppressive situation. Oppressive situation doesn't always mean that somebody is doing something haram to you, like out, like, you know, it needs to be like fiqh book haram. Okay. That is something really important for as women or just general, we have to and recognize just like even in our like communities. It doesn't mean somebody has to be like beating you up for you to be oppressed. You don't have to be beat up like what the textbook definition is. Like somebody has to, hitting you and leaves a mark. Meaning, so if they slap you and it doesn't leave a mark, it's okay. That's not okay. It's not okay, right? You say somebody is cursing at you. Oh, it's okay because they didn't physically abuse you. No, that's not okay. Say somebody, even if it's like constant criticism that, oh, it's, again, they're not beating you, they're not physical with you, and they're not leaving a mark. So it's okay. It's allowed. Like it's the text, the fiqh books don't mention it. So it's okay. No, it's still oppression. It's still oppression. Okay. And الظلم ظلمات يوم القيامة. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, ظلم, oppression is ظلمات, darknesses. He didn't say darkness. He said darknesses on the day of judgment. Right. So we want, when we have this situation, if you're in a situation where you are, I think, very easily to assess, there's no sakina. I would say if there's no sakina for you, If you feel a lack of sakina at home, which is the place of sakina, then most likely there is oppression. Okay, so what do you do if you are being oppressed, right? You look at your resources. What do you have that you can, what do you have that you can change the situation? The first resource is you have yourself, communication, okay? Yourself and communication, you know, communicate that this needs to stop, etc. Boundaries. And who's going to put down boundaries is yourself. Okay. If you're not doing that, then you're not a resource to yourself. You have to be, oops, you have to at least be a resource to yourself. Right? You are your, um, perhaps, you know, in a way you can say you are your greatest resource, right? Because through you, through, you know, changing or through, you know, making changes, you can change your situation. And if you are in a state that you're oppressed, if you do not change your own situation, if you constantly accept it, accept the status quo, keep on doing day in and day out, keep on, you know, doing the same old thing, you know what's going to happen? It's not going to change. I promise. It's not going to change if you don't make an effort or put it out there that you expect a change, right? Because the people who are you are experiencing oppression from, they're not going to change if you don't let them know that they're doing something that is harming you or they're doing something that's unacceptable to you. Okay. So the first thing is to make boundaries, to put down some boundaries. Okay. Say, for example, I'm going to say something very, very typical. Say you live with your mother-in-law and she's very critical of you. That criticism, yeah, you know, there's a normal criticism when it gets to a point where you're losing sakina. Sakina, what does it mean, Lucas and sakina? You're getting depressed. You get anxiety from being around her. You're fighting with her or your husband because of her. Okay. These things, that is an indication that there is no sakina. That is an indication there's something wrong. Okay. You should not be depressed because um, of what somebody else is saying to you. If somebody else is saying, you know, some other words, criticisms, your husband's, your mom, your mother's, your parents, or your mother-in-law's, if things are happening that, you know, that are causing you anxiety, depression, that shows that this is wrong. There's something that's happening that's wrong. It could be that everybody has a different threshold. And this is what I mean here is that it doesn't mean that somebody has to be beating you up for it to be haram. Okay. It could be that, and this is something that we, you know, I'm not saying, you know, if somebody says something once and then you're like, oh, you're going into a depressive state, that's not normal as well, right? That's not normal as well. But, you know, if it's something that's happening consistently, then that's wrong. Okay. If it happens once, you know, especially mother-in-laws, they're known to be critical, etc. It happens now and then, but you know you have generally you have a good relationship, then you know you're not going to get depressed when it happens. But if it's something that's consistent and it's like there's this relationship that's so there's fitna, right? Going back to fitna, that it makes it hard for you to do the right thing, then things need to change. You need to, so the first thing is to put boundaries. How does that look like? It can happen even with your mother. It can happen with your mother or your father, a parent. Overly critical parent, overly critical in-laws, overly critical, even your husband, right? What do? You know, it needs to be said that you can't just accept it and act like everything's fine. You have to mention it. You have to say, you know, that really hurts. Every time I find your words really critical and it hurts me. And you know, it makes me sad and I don't like it. Please stop. Okay. So make boundaries. So this is the first thing. when you are oppressed, you have to get your boundaries together. So this is another seed, right? Learn and you're if you're in that situation where there's oppression. So we talked about if you're being oppressive, you may need seeds of, worthiness to know that you're worthy, or seeds of self-care, or seeds of help, seeking help, right? Asking for help. Get get people used to, if they're not used to, if your culture in your household is that, your husband's never hears you asking for help, plant those seeds. Plant those seeds now, because you know what? In Ramadan, you're going to need even more help. So start planting those seeds that, actually no, I need help. And yeah, you should help me because you're my husband and you're supposed to be taking care of me, and I'm not okay if I have to do a thousand things. And I'm not okay, especially if I have to do a thousand things and you're available to help, right? So plant those seeds. Now, if you're oppressed, the first thing seeds that you need to put down are boundaries. Boundaries for your take care of your emotional and mental state, right? Of course, to say your physical state, of course, if you're being, physically abused, of course you need boundaries. You need to get out of there, right? Um, so that's something else. This goes without saying, really. But if you're being, emotionally and brush your teeth, go. Mariam, hold on one second. So the other thing is, if you're oppressed, the first thing is boundaries. And to again, it goes back to, it is related with this as well, that you're worthy of having these boundaries. I really think that that's a lot of times as women, we don't even recognize, or we don't realize or recognize or believe that we're worthy of having boundaries, that we're worthy of being treated with respect. That if from our parents, from our in-laws, even if it's your mother-in-law, it doesn't mean, or your mother, it doesn't mean, just because they're older than you, that that they're allowed to be disrespectful, right? Nobody's allowed to be disrespectful. For example, you're not allowed to disrespect your children, right? That would be oppressive. But you're also on the flip side, the elders are not allowed to be disrespectful to you. Of course, if it's an elder disrespecting you, it's not, it's not obvious. It's not like your child disrespecting. It's different. It's a different dynamic there. But if it happens constantly where that you're not getting sakina, you have to put down those boundaries. You have to put it, speak up. Perhaps another resource is, like your family, for example, get somebody involved, get somebody, a family or friend or imam or someone like that, get someone else um, involved that you need, who can come and be like the intermediary to help rectify your thing. So um to stop the oppression, you have to first of all make shake the boat. You can't accept that the status quo as it is. Okay, so that's the first thing, is yourself to not accept it, and then you see what your other resources are. Who may perhaps you need to ask your mom or your father or your brother to intervene if there's issues with, like, with your spouse or with your in-laws, whatever it is, or maybe your friend or imam. Just make sure you pick someone who has, who's emotionally intelligent, right? Who can convey your needs, and also, do it in a way that it's not going to make things worse, obviously, where our goal is to have sakina in the house, which is a sunnah, which is that to bring in sunnah of the sunnah of sakina in the house. Okay, so these are, some of the things that, these are ideas of some of the seeds that we need to plant as women. you may need something else. If, for example, if you are working, wait a minute, if you're working or you're studying that you need just time, you need time to yourself, or you need more time, or so it's something that you have to kind of assess yourself. What is it that you need? But I think inshallah this will get it's a general, because a lot of things go in to hear either, you're either oppressed or oppressive, and, to concentrate on, getting out fitna and oppression, and then healing, of course, the healing and connection. Um, the Rajab seeds, what I would recommend in terms of dhikr right now, definitely doing the Sayyid al-Istighfar, because remember, the scholars say Rajab is the month of istighfar. So at least do that's one thing that you can just give me 1 minute, please. So is Sayyidul Istighfar, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever says that in the morning, and if they pass away during the day, they will enter Jannah, and whoever says it in the evening and they pass away, they will enter Jannah. So it's, you say it once. I think all of us know that, but that is something that we can start and implement. It's something little, and it's a seed of dhikr that we can do. And this, especially for this month of Rajab, that it is the month of istighfar, right? Because we do istighfar is kind of like the weeding out. And then planting, then Shaban is for like the month of um, like tilling our soil, I mean, taking care of those seeds, and then Ramadan will be the month of reaping. But Shaban is also the month of salawat. So this is the month of istighfar. Shaban is the month of salawat, and the Ramadan is the month of Quran and also La ilaha illallah. So I would recommend now, aside from the seeds that we talked about, like the healing and the boundaries, things like that, just I would, if you don't have it already, the seed of istighfar, sayyidul istighfar, to put it in morning and evening. And also, depending where you are in your Quran, do you need to finish up a khatam that you started through the year, finish up that khatam so you can start a new khatam in Ramadan? Or just get into the habit of reading Quran. So start, if you're doing it, 1 page a day right now, or even a few lines, start that. Do put in those seeds of dhikr now. Start that right now, and I pray, inshallah. Are there any questions? Here, I see a question here. What if we get offended easily or have low self-esteem to begin with? So while they may be causing problems for our own mental state shortcomings contributing to it. That's a very good question. Thank you. And this is why I said, everybody's different. Everybody's different. You may have self-esteem issues, and therefore, even just a little bit of criticism is fitna for you. And so that in that case, there needs to be which is not, it's not a normal state, but you're not in a normal state, right? You need extra self-care. You need extra, not just self-care, maybe perhaps you need therapy, perhaps you need to be around people who can lift you up, right? And so you, at that point, if you're in a state of your life where you are in low self-esteem, you have to have very thick boundaries. Do not, you know, don't be around people who are going to put you down at all at that point. Do you get what I'm saying? So if you are in a state is very, which is very, very vulnerable, if you are pregnant, right, postnatal, those are very vulnerable states, right? I mean, even around your times as women, around our times of our menstruation, to get PMS, we know those are vulnerable states. Don't hang around people who are going to be critical of you. You're not obliged. People, you're not obliged to hang around. If it's your in-laws, if it's your parents and you're obliged to, limit it. Limit it. You have to be good to your parents, yes, but it doesn't mean you have to, you know, accept abuse. and you have to let it affect your mental and emotional well-being, right? So, if you're in a state where you're already, struggling with uh struggling with like depression and anxiety, oh, you have to have very thick boundaries then. Very thick boundaries, very clear boundaries. What is it you need? How can you take care of yourself to get out of that state? You don't need people who are going to put you down at that point, right? So you don't need people who are going to put you down, or you don't need people who are going to criticize you. You don't need any of that. Say it's like your husband doing that. Say it's somebody you like live with. Maybe you need a break. Maybe you need a break. Maybe you need to go to your family's house and they take care of you and, kind of nurture you until you're in a better state. And then you can go back. That you are worthy of that. You are worthy of being healed. You are worthy of being in a normal situation. You are worthy of not being depressed and not having anxiety. Okay, you are worthy of that. And whatever it takes to get you to that state of balance where you are in a state where, okay, yeah, you don't have that low self-esteem that you're not going to be everything that said you get broken, but you need to build yourself up. And so you have to see what seeds you need. Your seed may be um uh seclusion, meaning seclusion or staying away from certain people. It may be separation from certain people. That may be the seed that you need. Figure that out. Figure that out. I strongly urge you to, because being in, states uh, of oppression and of depression, and it's very common for women. And as I said, especially even during pregnancy, we go through a lot of states where we are vulnerable to that. Pregnancy, postnatal depression, very common. And even during our menses time, to a lesser degree, of course, but these things are common. So we have to be aware of our own selves, what we're going through, and seek the help that you need. It may be, if you say you're not in a position to go home or to get a separation, you know what? You need to be around people who are going to lift you up. Be around, get, friends, make friends. If you don't have friends, make friends. Seek out help. If you're financially able, get therapy, get counseling. If you're not able, if you don't have the means, seek out free counseling, free therapy if you can. Okay, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for you all. Inshallah, I will put this up on YouTube. And what I suggest is that look up on my channel. There are things about self-care. It's very important. I think we did something about needs, or maybe Sarah Malik. This is very important. I recommend her book to everyone, The Four Traits of a Cherished Muslimah. I was looking at it in order, to prep for this talk. And I was just thinking, subhanAllah, I need to revisit everything that she says so much. But that book is still available. She's not coaching anymore, but her book, The Four Traits of a Cherished Muslimah, I'm going to put that here. If somebody has a link for it, that would be great. Not, let me just put the name here. But I recommend, I have never seen, honestly, I read a bestseller book on boundaries by Nedra Tawab. She's New York Times bestseller, but I can promise you, I can say hands down, Sarah's book is better. It's just not as popular, but her book on when it talks about boundaries, it doesn't tell you just you need boundaries, which I feel like the other book does, but it teaches you how to implement the boundaries and how to go about, and it's just very well rounded, that it doesn't tell you just boundaries for other people, but it talks about boundaries for yourself, meaning, to not be oppressive to others as well. And so I highly, highly recommend that. And inshallah, hopefully we can do more. Inshallah, I'm going to be going to Umrah in 2 weeks. after in February, but inshallah, after I come back, I hope to restart either the revival course, which is talks about just women kind of just reviving the sunnah in our homes, uh, coming back to the sakina in our homes, recognizing as women what we are worthy of, what we deserve, kind of the care and the from the deen. And it's all about sunnah and it's all about hadith. And no, this book is by Sarah Malik. Sarah Malik. The book that I mentioned was uh that I read, the other one was Boundaries by Nadra Tawab. It's a bestseller in New York Times. But as I said, I recommend Sarah's book 10 times more than that because I read both books and Sarah's just like her chapter on boundaries is like so much better than the whole book. That's how I feel. Maybe it's a personal bias, but I just feel like it's much more practical things, whereas the book Boundaries she has, even the other book I got, I didn't feel like it was as practical. Sarah will take you actually how to go through and implement boundaries. So that's a really beneficial. Yes, there is a workbook that goes along with it, which I also recommend that. So anything, mashallah, Sarah Malik. But what I would say, leave you guys with, look up self-care. I think I have self-care with Sarah Malik on the Nirma YouTube. And also there is a needs creed. I don't know if that's on my thing, but I know she did that to go through, like, to recognize what are our needs that are missing. And uh, I'll give you another resource actually. Here, this is something that I've used in the past. I don't know actually if it's still up there because it's something that I used a long time ago, but it's called Best Year Ever. Let me know if this works. If it doesn't work, then I'll put it in the here. He has a like to go through like an assessment of your life and kind of like um what your life needs at that, so check that out. See if I think I typed it wrong. But anyway, it's that if you go on that, it's similar to a um a needs creed that Sarah does. Best year. I think that's it. No, that's not it. Again, I typed it wrong. Best year ever for yes by Michael Hart. ME score. It's supposed to be best year ever. Anyway, so it takes about 10 minutes, so you can go through what the kind of I would recommend doing that as well. Just trying to figure out what kind of seeds that we need for Ramadan. Inshallah, I'll be doing another talk next week. I think I'm doing a talk on just like purification to help us figure out what we need. That's another seed that I forgot. Seeds of knowledge. Seeds of knowledge that they're one of something that knowledge. Oops, what happened here? Uh, Knowledge. Sorry, it's not writing down. Anyway, seeds of knowledge that I think a lot of us need to reconnect with, just to have our basics. Fard Ain, we have to, in order to prepare for Ramadan, to know when we have to pray, when we don't have to pray, when we are fasting as women, our menses fiqh, to get that down. In order to do it right, to do Ramadan right, we have to have those kind of seeds of knowledge. So that those are another seeds that we can think about planting. Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the best Ramadan of our lives, inshallah, the most barakah for us and all the Muslims in the Ummah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa jazallahu anna Sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ahlu jazallahu anna Sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ahlu jazallahu anna Sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ahlu subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa iyyakum jazakumullahu khairan. Inshallah, the recording, I'll put it up on the YouTube, inshallah, in a few days. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. can't do. Keep me in your draws.